There's a region in central Turkey where an entire city, capable of hiding 20,000 people along with their livestock and food stores, was carved directly into the earth, and it stayed almost completely hidden from the outside world for centuries. Not discovered by archaeologists, not marked on maps. A local resident stumbled onto it in 1963, while knocking down a wall in his basement, and found a tunnel leading straight down into darkness. That's Cappadocia in a single moment. A landscape that looks otherworldly on the surface, and somehow gets even stranger the deeper you go beneath it. Tonight, we're not just floating over the famous valleys in a hot air balloon, though we're absolutely doing that too. We're descending 85 meters underground into a city built to hide entire communities from invading armies, sleeping inside a room carved directly out of volcanic rock, wandering through a valley where erosion sculpted the landscape into shapes so strange that locals genuinely still argue about what to call them, and standing in a whirling dervish ceremony that hasn't changed in 700 years. By the time this ends, you'll understand why so many people who've flown here for just one sunrise end up staying an entire extra week. Sunrise over the fairy Chimneys start before dawn, because in Cappadocia, that's when the region reveals its most famous secret. As the sky shifts from black to a pale, cold blue, dozens, sometimes over 100 hot air balloons rise silently over the valleys around Greem, drifting low enough that you can occasionally reach out and brush the tops of the fairy Chimneys, tall cone-shaped rock formations scattered across the landscape below. The entire scene looks almost impossible from the ground, and even stranger from inside a basket rising through cold morning air, burners roaring intermittently, the pilot navigating using wind currents at different altitudes, rather than any engine at all, since balloons here have no steering mechanism beyond rising or descending into a different layer of moving air. Locals who've watched this sunrise thousands of times still step outside to look up every single morning, because apparently, even after decades, it never quite stops being worth watching. But that's only the beginning, because those strange cone-shaped formations you're floating above, called fairy chimneys, aren't just decorative geology. They're the result of millions of years of volcanic history colliding with simple erosion. Massive eruptions from nearby volcanoes, particularly Mount Erciyes, blanketed this entire region in soft, volcanic ash and tuff millions of years ago, and centuries of wind and rain slowly wore away the softer rock, leaving behind harder caps of basalt balanced precariously on top of narrower stone columns beneath. Locals have their own explanations too, older folklore describing them as homes for fairies, hence the name, though Turkish tradition also connects some formations to Peris, supernatural beings from Persian and Anatolian mythology, said to inhabit the rock long before humans ever settled here. Walk through Pasabag, sometimes called Monk's Valley, and you'll find some of the most dramatic examples. Multi-headed chimneys with several distinct caps balanced on a single stone trunk. Early Christian hermits reportedly once carving small chapels directly into their bases centuries ago, seeking isolation in some of the strangest natural architecture on Earth. The hidden underground cities, just when you think you've adjusted to this landscape's strangeness. Cappadocia pulls you underground entirely. Derinkuyu, the largest of the region's excavated underground cities, plunges roughly 85 meters beneath the surface across at least 18 distinct levels, complete with ventilation shafts, wells, stables, wine and oil presses, churches, and even a small school. Historians believe construction began as early as the Phrygian period, possibly around the 8th century BC, later expanded significantly by early Christians hiding from Roman persecution, and, centuries after that, from Arab raids during the Byzantine era. Massive circular stone doors, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, could be rolled across tunnel entrances from the inside only, sealing the entire city off from attackers within minutes. Walk through the narrow, low-ceilinged passages today, and it's genuinely disorienting. Cool, damp air, the ceiling forcing you to duck in certain sections, and the almost unsettling realization that entire families once lived down here for weeks, or even months at a time, waiting out threats on the surface above. There's one more layer to this underground world worth understanding before continuing on, because Derinkuyu was never an isolated project. Archaeologists have identified over 200 underground settlements scattered throughout the region, several connected to each other by tunnels stretching for miles, forming an entire hidden network beneath the surface that entire communities could theoretically move through without ever stepping outside. Kaymakal, a slightly shallower but wider underground city nearby, is believed to have been linked to Derinkuyu by one such tunnel. though most of that connecting passage remains unexcavated and closed off today. Standing at the bottom of either site, looking up through a narrow ventilation shaft toward a small, distant circle of daylight, it's hard not to feel a genuine physical sense of just how much effort an entire civilization was willing to invest simply to survive. Valleys, castles, and cave hotels. There's one valley nearby that manages to feel almost peaceful by comparison, despite an equally strange name and equally strange rock formations. Love Valley earned its nickname from the region's tallest and most distinctly shaped fairy chimneys, some rising over 130 feet, and hiking through at golden hour, the pale rock catching warm afternoon light against a backdrop of vineyards and distant hills, remains one of the quieter, more contemplative corners of the region, especially compared to the balloon-filled skies at dawn. A short drive away, Uisar Castle, the tallest natural point in the region, rises like a honeycombed rock fortress, riddled with hundreds of hand-carved rooms and tunnels, and climbing to the top rewards you with a panoramic view stretching across nearly the entire Cappadocian landscape at once. Fairy chimneys scattered below like an entire alien forest frozen mid-growth. What happens after dark in this region shifts the entire experience into something quieter, more intimate. Sleep in a cave hotel, carved directly into the soft volcanic rock, and the temperature inside stays remarkably stable regardless of the season, a natural insulation locals have relied on for centuries. Long before modern climate control existed, walls carry a faint mineral smell, cool stone pressing close around simple, curved doorways, and stepping outside at night, away from any real light pollution, the stars over Cappadocia appear in a density that genuinely surprises most first-time visitors. An entire sky usually washed out by city lights suddenly visible in full detail above a landscape that already looks like it belongs somewhere else entirely. The ancient churches of Green. There's one more site worth pausing at before heading underground, because it explains just how deeply this region shaped early Christian history. The Green Open Air Museum preserves an entire complex of rock-cut monasteries and chapels dating back to the 4th century, when Byzantine monks first began carving communal living spaces and churches directly into the soft volcanic tuff. Inside the dark church, so named because a single small window kept sunlight from fading its interior for centuries, frescoes depicting biblical scenes remain remarkably vivid, deep reds and blues still visible after roughly 1,000 years, protected largely by the same darkness that gave the church its name. Monks here developed dye pigments partly from the region's own volcanic minerals, meaning in a strange way, the same geology that shaped the landscape outside also colored the artwork preserved within it. So maybe what makes this region unforgettable isn't really the balloons drifting across the sunrise, spectacular as they are. Maybe it's realizing that an entire world exists just beneath what you can see at first glance, waiting patiently, exactly as it has for thousands of years, for someone willing to look a little closer. If this journey inspired you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which destination you're adding to your bucket list.